Sangeun is a professional contract wife who gets paid to do fake dating. However, everything changes when one of her clients starts wanting more than just a contract. Now, as he tries to rizz her up, she ends up falling in love with him. The story begins when Sangeun checks Jiho's portfolio at her favorite restaurant to see if he fits what she usually works on. While still checking his portfolio, she sees him walking towards her, and she immediately realizes that he is different from the other men she usually works with because he skips the small talk and immediately asks her to marry him. Intrigued by his personality, Sangeun accepts his offer, and they agree to have dinner at his apartment several times a week. As they spend time together on these days, she finds out that he is a sincere person, which makes her happy with their arrangement. 5 years later, she decides to retire from her job because she has now become so popular that whenever she goes for her next wedding dress fitting, the stylists there always recognize her from her last wedding, making her feel embarrassed. So, in the spirit of retirement, she goes to the ATM to pay off her debt to Miho, her former guardian, as an appreciation for raising her when she was younger, even though she was not exactly the nicest to her. On her way out, she receives a call from Miho, and she thinks Miho wants to thank her for the money. However, Miho tells her to meet with her at a cafe, and when she gets there, she is shocked to find out that Miho is not appreciative of the money and instead tells her to stop sending her money, even though she's been doing so for 13 years. Annoyed by Miho's attitude, she leaves the cafe angrily and returns to her car, where she reminisces on what caused their fallout in the first place, only to be interrupted by a call from one of her clients, and she leaves for her next job. While Sangeun is planning her retirement, Jiho, who is actually a socially awkward person, attends a support group class headed by Seongmi to learn about how to be more social with people, where he is given an assignment to call someone and strike up a conversation with. But when he returns home that night, he realizes that he has no one he is close enough with to call, so he calls Seongmi to inform her. Seongmi, in return, encourages him to find someone to call, and as she continues to talk, he picks up Sangeun's business card and contemplates calling her. Sangeun, on the other hand, hangs out with her best friend Gwangnam, whom she has also helped out before by marrying him to reduce the pressure from his parents concerning settling down, even though he is actually gay. The two of them discuss their day, and she rants on about how the client she went to meet embarrassed her by introducing her to his daughter as her new stepmother. And while still discussing, Gwangnam sees Haejin, a celebrity sitting in another side of the bar, and goes to meet him for his autograph. As he leaves, Jiho's call comes in, shocking her in the process. After she picks, she immediately asks what the problem could be because he never calls, and he begins to ask her questions from the book Seongmi handed to him in class as a guide. Even though she finds the questions weird, she answers them anyway, and at the call, she becomes convinced that he is not a normal person. 30 minutes after, they return home and decide to go to Canada after she retires, so the next day, she visits Jiho at his apartment with the intention of telling him that she will be ending their contract soon, and as he prepares dinner for them, she begins to think of how to tell him, only to end up not telling him, and instead postpones it to their next meeting. However, when the next meeting arrives, she still does not tell him, and when she gets home to explain to an impatient Gwangnam, she blames it on a plant in his apartment she has grown to love, even though Gwangnam does not fall for her explanation and believes she has started to fall for him. This is how she continues to postpone telling him her decision until one day, after their usual dinner, he asks her for a divorce, catching her by surprise. Sangeun returns home that night and shares a drink with Gwangnam, where she opens up to him about Jiho asking for a divorce. This catches him by surprise, and he asks whether she will have to refund Jiho, since that is what she does when a client breaks their contract. However, she evades the question because she refused to agree to the divorce and scolds Jiho for letting go of their 5-year relationship so easily. She insists that she will continue to work since he had just paid her for the month's salary and she still has 27 days left, claiming that it is her professional mindset. So she lies to Gwangnam that Jiho begged her to continue working for the rest of the month before they finalize their divorce. But unknown to her, Jiho actually feels bad for asking for the divorce, so he begins to rewash the neat plates in his kitchen to clear his mind. Sangeun also prepares dinner for herself and Gwangnam, while Gwangnam stresses over the fact that he will have to clean up after her because she sucks at cleaning up. But as they eat, she continues to rant to Gwangnam about how betrayed she feels, and Gwangnam wonders that there must be something special about Jiho to make her feel like that, so he begins to question if the guy is romantic and affectionate, but she claims that he is not. The next morning, Haejin, who has just moved into Jiho's building, comes out to collect his cat, Jamie, who has been placed in a box from Jungwon, his manager, and as he is returning to the building, Jiho, who has also just come outside to receive his own package, sees him holding a box just as a delivery van that has his picture arrives behind him. Convinced it is the package he is expecting, Jiho moves closer to Haejin and attempts to collect the box from him, but the two soon get into a squabble, causing the box to fall, and Jamie runs out of it. Immediately, Jiho questions why Haejin kept a cat in a box and proceeds to pick it up. This gesture surprises Haejin because Jamie is not friendly with him, and he is surprised to see how it is acting with Jiho. Soon after, Jiho's real package arrives, and Haejin assists him in carrying it, and they return to the building. As the building's elevator opens for them, they see Sangeun, who is just resuming work at Jiho's place, and Haejin freezes because she is the girl he once fell in love with years ago. As the guys enter the elevator, Haejin soon notices that Sangeun and Jiho are wearing the same wedding ring, and he figures that they are probably married, so he introduces himself as the new tenant who is living upstairs from them. Soon after, Sangeun excuses herself from the elevator because she is allergic to cats, while the guys proceed to Haejin's apartment. On getting there, Haejin begins to question Jiho's relationship with Sangeun, but Jiho finds it weird and goes to drop off Jamie in its room instead. When he returns to his apartment, he begins to unbox his package in front of Sangeun, and it contains detergents he intends to use to wash dishes if his mind gets occupied with her thoughts again. As this is going on, Haejin, on the other hand, reminisces on the first time he met Sangeun and wonders why she pretended not to know him. He is even more shocked to find out she is married because he knows how the idea of marriage disgusts her. So to clear his mind of her, he decides to clear out some of his used clothes from his closet, and on the way out to drop them in the recycle bin, he runs into Sangeun, who is just leaving Jiho's apartment in the elevator, and he is shocked when he notices that the wedding ring on her finger is no longer there. Later that night, while watching the news about a recent murder, Haejin hears a loud noise downstairs. Investigating, he briefly sees Jiho aggressively hammering a photo onto the wall. Shaken by this, he decides to call the cops, but his phone falls from his hand, thereby making a sound that forces Jiho to look up from his activity. And by the time Haejin fully regains himself, Jiho has already left, and he rushes downstairs to check out the picture. He finds out that it is the picture of the victim on the news he had seen earlier, and he rushes to his room in fear. 2 days later, Jiho drops bags of canned foods on his kitchen cabinet with the hope of convincing Sangeun to stop cooking because she makes a mess, and begins to remember the time they shared. Apparently, the reason why he asked for the divorce was that Sangeun once told him about her interest in traveling overseas and falling in love for real during one of the dinners they shared. So when he found her travel itinerary, a few days after their discussion, he decided to divorce her to free her. Shortly after, Sangeun arrives at his apartment with foodstuffs she plans to cook. Before she enters, she tries to fix her makeup, but soon stops herself and wonders why she is trying to look good for him. While still lost in thought, Haejin, who saw her arrive through his window, rushes to meet her. He asks her what Jiho does for a living and if he is aware of what he did last night, but Sangeun, who has no idea what Jiho does for a living, acts defensively and tells him to mind his business before storming into Jiho's apartment. On entering, Jiho is surprised to see her enter without ringing the bell because that is what she usually does, but she evades the question and suggests preparing their dinner. Jiho tries to convince her to let them eat canned food, but she refuses, and that is how they end up eating her choice for dinner, after messing up the whole kitchen as usual. During dinner, Sangeun asks about his job after Haejin's questions made her curious, but Jiho coldly says he doesn't owe anyone an explanation. This statement hurts her, and on her way out, she thanks him for the time they shared together and suggests they make their next dinner the last one they will share together, and even though it hurts him to let her go, he agrees, thinking he has done a good thing. The day of the final dinner arrives, and as she proceeds to enter the elevator, Haejin, who is just returning from a shoot, joins her. On the way up, Haejin tries to talk to her, but she dismisses him. Just as the elevator door opens, she leaves him standing and proceeds to Jiho's apartment, but Haejin refuses to let her be and follows her. While still trying to tell him off, Jiho opens his door and sees them together. Feeling jealous at their proximity, he calls her honey and tells her to come in to eat, leaving her amused. Jiho was once married before, but on a fateful day, his ex-wife requested a divorce, leaving him heartbroken. And since then, he has placed his focus on his work as a family court judge overseeing couples who have come to file for divorce. But one day, he notices Sangeun and realizes that she is different from his other clients because, unlike the others, she blames herself for her divorce. Her visits to the court soon became frequent because 6 months later she reappeared before him. It continued like that 6 other times, and each time, she blamed herself for the divorce. Curious about her personality, he decided that he was going to marry her. But as he waits for her to arrive for their last dinner together as a couple, he hears noise outside his apartment, so he opens his door to check it out, only to find Sangeun and Haejin, and he pulls that stunt. Haejin, on the other hand, sees this as an opportunity to confront Jiho, and he begins to question what he has been up to recently, so he clears the air and finally reveals that he works as a family court judge. He then explains that the murder victim had filed for divorce at his court, but stops himself from explaining further because he feels it is none of his business, while Sangeun just watches him in amusement. After clearing the air, Sangeun finally enters Jiho's apartment. They eat their final dinner, and Sangeun teases him about the stunt he pulled earlier, causing him to spill out his drink. He explains that he is just trying to be protective, and they continue to talk until late at night. Soon after, she takes her leave, leaving Jiho sad, and as she drives out of the building in her car, a stranger takes her picture from afar. The next day, Jiho and Cholmi, his head of department, who is also interested in his interpersonal relationship with his colleagues, sit down together for coffee at his office. Jiho briefs him on how seriously he has been taking his support group classes since Cholmi is the one who introduced the class to him in the first place. But Cholmi is not entirely convinced by his words, so he gives him VIP tickets to a music recital and informs him to invite his subordinates, which he reluctantly agrees to. 2 days later, an excited Sangeun, who is excited she now has a free Friday since her contract with Jiho is off, checks on her ring collections from her previous marriages and decides to donate them. So she begins to package them. But when she gets to Jiho's ring, she cannot bring herself to package it, so she stares at it intently, only to realize that she has not officially filed for divorce from Jiho, and she hurries out of her room to do that. When she returns home later in the evening, Guangguan, who is already waiting for her, immediately requests her car to pick up some things. And since she still plans to visit Jiho to give him the divorce form to sign, she suggests he drop her off first before going about his business. So Guangnam drops her off in front of Jiho's building, and she proceeds to enter with her umbrella over her head since it is currently raining, only to meet a strange guy with a helmet blocking her view. The guy tells her to turn around and move, so she immediately complies. But as she continues to walk, she summons courage and turns to ask who he may be because she thinks he may be one of the crazy clients she must have worked with in the past. Instead of answering, the guy attacks her, causing her to fall. As the guy tries to hit her, Haejin suddenly appears and hits the guy, causing him to run away while Haejin helps her up and offers to take her to his apartment. She is reluctant at first but later agrees since she has no other choice, and he escorts her. On getting there, she changes from her wet clothes into his clothes and pleads with him to help her treat the wound she sustained from the attack. During the treatment, Haejin notices that she is not wearing her ring, and she lies to him that she is a glorified housekeeper who comes to Jiho's place every 2 days to cook for him. And even though he does not entirely believe it, he drops the topic. Shortly after, she proceeds to leave the apartment, but Haejin stops her in her tracks by calling her Jamie, her former name. He reminds her of the first day they met, which happens to be when Miho took her to introduce her to his family 13 years ago. Meanwhile, Jiho is on his way outside his apartment to empty his trash can when the security guard of his building approaches him to ask if his girlfriend is okay. He is confused at first, but after hearing the guard's explanation, he finds out that Sangeun is hurt and is in the building, probably with Haejin. So, when he returns to his apartment, he begins to think widely of what the two of them may be up to, and he decides to bury himself in work to take his mind off it. As this is going on, Sangeun and Haejin catch up on old times, and she finally recognizes him as the son of the owner of a company she is familiar with, but he is trying to keep it a secret from the press currently, while she tells him that since she was raised by Miho to be a bride, she is taking it more seriously now. She gives him a number to call to get his clothes back and leaves his apartment, now more determined than ever to leave the country for good because he is someone from her past she does not want to remember. She proceeds to Jiho's apartment to give him the form but decides against it at the last minute, and as she returns to the elevator, she meets Jiho, who is just from Haejin's floor with an envelope in his hand, inside the elevator. Immediately, Jiho explains that he heard she was hurt and only went upstairs to confirm, and when she asks if he is worried about her, he evades the question and offers that they go out for dinner. During dinner, Sangeun seeks Jiho's professional advice and explains what transpired between her and the helmet guy from earlier. But instead of expressing his worry, he keeps it professional and explains that she may be targeted because of her choice of profession. This statement angers her so much that she thanks him curtly, comments that she liked him better when he did not talk, and takes her leave, only to get out and remember that she has not given him the divorce form. He also exits the restaurant just in time, so she uses the opportunity to hand him the document and collect the envelope with him. Shortly after, Gwangnam returns to pick her, and as she leaves, Jiho checks the contents of the envelope and sees it is a divorce form. The next morning, Sangeun checks out the envelope she collected from Jiho and finds out that it contains a ticket to a music recital. She immediately feels bad and proceeds to call Jiho to thank him, and Jiho, in return, thanks her for the document he gave her, but before she can explain herself, he cuts the call, claiming to be busy with work. Unknown to her, Jiho is actually trying to get the surveillance footage that may have captured the helmet guy. Meanwhile, Haejin, who asked someone to do a background check on Sangeun, finds out that she actually works as a contract wife, and he is amused at her smartness. So he calls her with the number she dropped earlier, only to find out that it is actually Gwangnam's number. He asks her for his clothes, and she arrives at his apartment shortly after to return them. He invites her in so that he can also return her clothes, and as they sit down to talk, he finds out she does not work for Jiho again. Soon after, they hear the doorbell ring, and he goes to get it just as she also stands to leave. On opening the door, Haejin is shocked to see Jiho, just as Sangeun also sees him. But Jiho just goes straight to the point and informs him that the helmet guy who attacked her is related to him. To prove his point, Jiho shows them the surveillance footage he secured, and as he shows them, Sangeun is touched by his seriousness with her situation. Jiho suggests that it is probably one of Haejin's stalkers who mistook him and Sangeun's relationship, and this makes Haejin feel bad. After their little meeting, Jiho escorts Sangeun out of the building, and as they are about to depart, Sangeun asks if he will attend the concert, and he replies that he will try to come. She soon finds out that the reason why he gave her the ticket is that he has a lot of tickets, and he decided to give her one because he feels she is the only one who won't take it the wrong way, but this only got her pissed because she thought he was trying to ask her on a date. The day of the concert finally arrives, and as she enters, she sees him at the lobby of the hotel. She smiles and goes to tell him to enjoy the show before entering the theater, leaving him standing there. After the concert, Cholmi and his wife run into Jiho at the lobby, and Cholmi immediately asks if he brought his colleagues along. Jiho replies that he did not bring them along because he did not want to ruin his way of life just to socialize with his colleagues, and an angry Cholmi asks if he wasted the tickets by coming alone. Before he can come up with something to calm Cholmi, Sangeun approaches them to tell Jiho he has been looking all over for him. Seeing this as a perfect opportunity, he lies to Cholmi that he came with his wife, Sangeun, while Sangeun immediately plays along. After Cholmi and his wife leave, Jiho apologizes to Sangeun for putting her on the spot, but she dismisses it and tells him that she is glad to play her role once again. He then asks if she thinks he is weird, and she uses the door is broken, but the room is fine statement to explain his personality, letting him know that he might seem strange on the outside, but deep down he is a good person. As she continues to explain, a dispatch rider tries to run into her, and Jiho immediately comes to her rescue by shielding her, leaving her stunned as to why he tried to protect her, not knowing that something is about to make her even more shocked, which is because soon after, Jiho requests she finish the rest of her contract period. Sangeun agrees and promises to teach him how to interact with people properly. The next day, Cholmi visits Jiho in his office to inform him that he and his wife will be the next to host their colleagues, and it will be at his home. He immediately declines, but Cholmi told him that he had already informed their colleagues of the development. In the meantime, aboard Sangeun stares dreamily at her photo album to pass the time, and as she reaches a picture of her and Miho, one of her past clients calls her for an urgent job, and even though she is hesitant at first, she agrees. After the gig, she returns to Jiho's apartment, but she is already exhausted from her previous gig that even Jiho notices. He soon finds out that she does a follow-up job if the need arises. So as they get ready for dinner, Jiho tells her that he will need to fix his door soon because of a problem he is currently facing at work. So she tries to lecture him on how to be free, but the teaching soon goes wrong when she falls on him, thereby causing some awkward tension between them. She stands back immediately and turns the situation into another round of lecture while Jiho tries to regain himself. Shortly after, she receives a call from Gwangnam, who informs her about Miho's arrest, and she watches it on the news for confirmation, only to be completely devastated to see that Miho has gotten herself into very big trouble by trying to sell government land for personal profit. Sensing she is probably close to Miho by her change in countenance, Jiho quickly makes a call to confirm the news, and after the call, he debriefs her on the current situation and lets her know Miho owes a huge amount of money. He then finds out that the reason why she is concerned is that Miho raised her when she was younger. Haejin also gets a hold of the news on his way home from work and immediately remembers Miho as the woman who brought Sangeun to his house on the day he first met her and tries to call her, but remembers that the number she gave him is not her personal line. On getting home, he finds out that pictures of him escorting Sangeun to his apartment on the day of her attack have been leaked to the press, and to make matters worse, reporters camp out in front of his building the next morning, such that innocent Jiho has to run into them on his way back from his morning jog. Later that morning, Haejin visits his family home, where his father tells him to return home because of the scandal and get married. Even though his mother tries to persuade him to accept the offer, he refuses. Meanwhile, Sangeun, who has just arrived home from paying off Mijo's debt, tells Gwangnam that she has sold her car and they will not be going to Canada again because she has no money left. Gwangnam thinks she is joking at first, but when he finds out that she isn't, it breaks him. Jiho, on the other hand, gets roped by Cholmi into having a welcome party with his colleagues, and on the way to the bar, he calls Sangeun, who is already on her way to his place, to inform her that they should reschedule. But she pleads with him to let her have dinner at his place because she wants to be alone, and he agrees. In the meantime, Haejin, who has just arrived at his building, is receiving a call from his mother who tries to persuade him to listen to his father, just as he sees Sangeun walking towards the building. Frustrated with his mother's nagging, he cuts the call, gets out of his car, goes to meet her, apologizes to a confused Sangeun for what he is about to do, and proceeds to disguise her with sunglasses and a scarf. As this is going on, Jiho, who has now arrived at the bar with his colleagues, wonders why Sangeun suddenly wanted to stay at his place. Curious, he texts her, not knowing that Sangeun has not even made it to his apartment. Instead, she is being paraded by Haejin in front of the reporters at his building as his fiancée, leaving her shocked just as Jiho finds out from the TV in the bar. Jiho sends Sangeun a text to let her know that he will cook her favorite meal for her the next time she visits his place, only to finish sending the text and look up to see a video of Haejin announcing his engagement to her on live TV. Meanwhile, Haejin, who has just finished the announcement, drags Sangeun to his apartment for a proper explanation, but a furious Sangeun is not having it and confronts him immediately. Haejin tells her to make a contract with him, and that is how she finds out that he has done a background check on her. She blatantly refuses, stating she has retired, so he pleads with her to help him, stating he wants to try to protect his mother, but she thinks he is just putting on an act and maintains her stance. On her way out of his apartment, Haejin gives her the key to his scooter so that she will be able to escape the reporters outside, and as she proceeds to leave, Haejin runs to the entrance to plead with her for the last time, stating that he really needs her. Even though the word touches her heart a little, she refuses to let him know and leave. The next morning, news of Haejin's surprise engagement has now reached the whole country, and Jiho finds his colleagues talking about it when he arrives at the office. They keep talking about it after he arrives. Annoyed, Jiho assigns one of them a difficult task to stop the gossip. Meanwhile, Haejin takes the car Gwangnam just leased for her since she no longer has a car to go and pick up Miho from the detention center. As she is waiting for Miho to come out, she receives a call from Haejin, who once again tries to persuade her, and quickly tells her to return his scooter in the evening before cutting the call because he is scared of what she might say. Shortly after, Miho walks out of the detention center and sees Sangeun waiting for her. But instead of greeting her, she ignores her and enters a cab instead. On seeing this, Sangeun immediately double-crosses the cab as it is about to leave and forces Miho out, telling the cab driver that Miho has no money to pay him. And this is how Sangeun ends up taking proud Miho to her own apartment. Sangeun welcomes Miho into her home as Gwangnam serves them lunch, but Miho soon mistakes him for a maid, thereby leaving him offended. Miho ignores his protests and suggests to Sangeun that she should go on blind dates with high-profile men so that she can elevate her status because she does not like her apartment. Hurt by Miho's words, Sangeun decides to hurt her too and introduces a surprised Gwangnam as her husband, causing Miho to jerk up from her chair because she finds it hard to believe that the lady she nurtured from young to become a perfect wife for a rich man ended up with someone like Gwangnam. After lunch, Sangeun and Gwangnam go out for some fresh air. And that is when he finds out that she is the lady Haejin introduced to the world as his fiancée. Shocked by this revelation, he asks if she will take the job, but she is unsure about it because even though she wants to retire, she kind of feels bad for Haejin. Gwangnam gets a feeling that she is going to accept the offer, so he asks how she is going to deal with Jiho. This is when she remembers that she has not replied to Jiho's text from yesterday, and she decides to visit him in person instead, since she also plans to return Haejin's scooter. In the evening, she arrives at the building in a scooter's outfit, only for her to reach the elevator and see Jiho, who immediately rough handles her because he thinks she is a robber, but she refuses to fall, shocking him. She proceeds to run afterwards, but he grabs her, and after a series of back and forth fighting, he eventually finds out it is actually her. Immediately, she tries to explain her condition, but Jiho beats her to it by apologizing for mistaking her for a robber and accuses her of returning to the marriage mart even though she claimed she has retired. As she tries to explain herself again, he refuses to listen to her and just tells her to keep it till their next meeting, since they are not supposed to meet on that day. Soon after, she arrives at Haejin's apartment, gets out of her scooter outfit to reveal her perfectly tailored suit, and tells him to follow her to the living room so they can discuss business. After settling down, she lets him know she has accepted his offer, and as she continues to talk about her conditions, Haejin just watches her with a smile on his face, but the smile soon wipes off when he finds out that she is expensive. Sangeun suggests they call off the contract if she is too expensive for him, but he quickly agrees and signs the contract. They officially close the deal just as Haejin sees Jamie, his cat, come out of his room, which is actually surprising because it rarely comes out. Sangeun immediately starts feeling the urge to sneeze because of her allergy, and before she can do anything, Jamie attacks her. The next day, Sangeun visits Jiho for their usual dinner, and she informs him that she has decided to put her retirement off for now, and since the contract with him is about to come to an end, they will proceed with the divorce as agreed. She also lets him know she has signed with Haejin, but he just asks her for the amount she needs to make a living, which makes her want to return to the business she once claimed to have left behind. She tries to explain to him that money is not the reason why she chose to help Haejin, but he refuses to believe and offers that they continue their contract so that he can continue to pay her. This statement hurts her so much because she thinks he is doing it out of pity for her, and she leaves angrily, leaving him confused. The next day, she and Haejin meet in a restaurant because she refuses to go to his place because of Jamie. Haejin lets her know that she named Jamie after her, and she questions if she was his first love, causing him to laugh awkwardly and drink instead. After leaving the restaurant, they go out for a drive, park at a spot popular for paparazzi, and she suggests they sleep as she gets comfortable because she is not exactly in great condition that day. As she sleeps, Haejin tries to make her more comfortable and stares at her dreamily as she sleeps. The news of their date soon reaches Jiho's ears the next morning as he overhears his secretary talking about them, and he becomes jealous. So he waits for her at his apartment later in the evening for what is supposed to be her last visit with the hope of making a good impression, but she does not show up. A few days later, a gentle Sangeun opens up to Gwangnam about what Jiho told her during her last visit to his place and asks him if her work is bad because she thinks she is just trying to help people who are trying not to disappoint others. He tries to cheer her up to take her mind off him, but she refuses. And shortly after, she gets dressed for hiking to lighten her mood, and even though Gwangnam tries to stop her from going, she refuses and opens the door only to meet Jiho at the entrance, leaving her shocked while he questions why she did not show up at his place the other day, informing her of how he kept waiting for her. Jiho awkwardly joins Sangeun on her hiking trip, even though his outfit is completely inappropriate. During the hike, he asks her to extend their contract. She refuses at first, but after hearing that he is planning to host his colleagues at his house and they all think he is married, she agrees to help him. So the next day, she visits him so they can plan the hosting party together. Jiho quickly uses the opportunity to tell her that he will need her to coach him because he sucks at interacting with people, and also tells her to let them stick to their usual days, but she refuses and tells him that he will have to ask Haejin first, since he is currently her #1 client. This is how the three of them end up in the hallway moments after to discuss it, and after series of back and forth arguments, Haejin agrees to Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays, but Jiho will have to babysit Jamie during the course of Sangeun's visit to his place because of Sangeun's allergy, and Jiho agrees even though deep down, he does not want her to work for Haejin at all. They start this arrangement the next day, and when Sangeun visits Haejin, Jiho comes to take Jamie to his apartment. And as Haejin and Sangeun play chess later on, he advises her to be careful with Jiho because he thinks Jiho may have feelings for her. The next day, Jiho exits his office to go home and prepare for Sangeun's visit, but as he is about to leave, he receives a text from her suggesting that they meet at the department store instead, so he changes direction and heads to the store. On getting there, they share a meal together, and as they discuss, Sangeun finds out that Jiho got to know her because he was a judge for some of her divorce cases. After the meal, they go to the shop for a couple of sets for his home since his colleagues think he is married. They also take a couple of shots that they can use as a portrait. As she drops him off at his home later that night in Miho's new car that she stole for the outing, he opens up to her about how he was once married to his first love, which catches her by surprise, considering his personality. But as he departs, she feels jealous that his first love is not her. 2 days later, Sangeun arrives at Jiho's apartment and turns it from a bachelor's pad to a couple's pad. And later in the evening, Jiho's colleagues and their spouses arrive at his place. As the colleagues marvel at the apartment, even Jiho is shocked that she has to caution him to stop acting like he is in a stranger's home. Shortly after, they all settle down for dinner and start to drink. Although Sangeun does not drink while working, she makes today an exception, shocking Jiho. After everyone has drunk to a stupor, Jiho, who did not take a single drink because it is against his values, is shocked at how she is behaving. His head of department's wife soon comes up with a game where everybody has to display their talent, and Sangeun keeps crashing their performance while Jiho just watches her in amusement. When the time to announce the winner arrives, the wife declares Jiho's secretary as the winner, and as she happily collects her prize, she thanks everyone present because she has never won a prize before. However, Jiho spoils her fun by arguing that Sangeun should have won because he believes everyone knows she displayed the best talent, and as Sangeun tries to get him to stop talking, he refuses because he wants to be fair. He soon begins to argue with his head of department that his secretary forfeits the prize, causing everybody to look at him badly because it was just a game. The next day, Sangeun visits Haejin to resume work even though she is clearly hungover from the previous night's drinks and asks them to take a walk together. However, they end up sitting outside the building, and she begins to doze off as she rests her head on his shoulders, catching him by surprise. Meanwhile, Jiho, who is just returning from his morning jog, sees them from afar and begins to feel jealous while the paparazzi take their photos. As this is going on, Sangeun suddenly remembers that she kissed Jiho the previous night and also told him that he is her first love. 3 hours later, Sangeun is still asleep, so Haejin decides to take her to his apartment to rest comfortably. But he meets Jiho in the hallway, who insists she should be brought to his place instead because he does not trust Sangeun alone with Haejin. Haejin refuses at first, but later he agrees under the condition that he will stay with her till she wakes up, and Jiho reluctantly agrees. Sangeun ends up sleeping on the couch in Jiho's apartment while Haejin snoops around because he is bored. Shortly after, Sangeun wakes up from her sleep only to see the two of them watching her intently. Seeing that she is okay, Haejin excuses himself to go about his business while Jiho suggests offering her a drink. However, she declines the offer and hurries out of his apartment to her house. Later that evening, Jiho stares at the fake wedding picture of him and Sangeun, thinking about how she called him her first love the previous night, and wonders if she meant it or it's just part of her business. His thoughts are soon interrupted by the sound of his doorbell, and he goes to open it only to see Sangeun on the other side of the door. He is taken aback at first, but regains himself and tells her to come into the apartment so they can talk. Unknown to him, she is just there to restore his apartment to its previous state because, as she enters, cleaning services follow her in and get to work. As they work, Jiho and Sangeun sit down to talk, and Jiho finds out that the cleaners are pros who have been doing the work for over 10 years, and he feels a certain way about it because he thought he was the first to experience the service. So he feigns tiredness and asks her to take them out, claiming he needs to rest, and as they exit his apartment, Sangeun wonders why he is acting like that. Meanwhile, as they leave, Jiho walks into his closet and sees that she has already organized the clothes he wears to work. The gesture touches him, but he is unsure if the arrangement is from her heart or just part of the service. However, he wears one of the outfits to work the next day, and he is shocked at the compliments he received from his colleagues, causing him to feel a little proud. As this is going on, Haejin exits his agency's building with Jungwon after a meeting with his agent and immediately sees the helmet guy from before deflating his car tire. Jungwon immediately runs to get him, but he escapes on his bike, causing Jungwon to injure his hand in the process. Haejin immediately runs to Jungwon's side as he also notices that his car tire has been deflated, making him wonder who the helmet guy may be. Later on in the evening, Sangeun visits Jiho at his apartment for dinner, and as he eats, she focuses on the movement of his lips that even Jiho notices and asks her if the food is not to her liking. Soon after, Jiho thanks her for helping him choose his outfit, and she rants on about how her past clients also had the same testimony, making him feel uncomfortable. She tells him she will help him pick out his outfit for the next day, and he expresses his gratitude. Afterwards, Sangeun wonders why he is not bringing up the kiss, so he asks him if he remembers anything that happened last night because she completely blacked out. And she is surprised when Jiho curtly replies that he also does not remember. But as he prepares dinner for her next visit, his mind keeps going back to the fact that she called him her first love, and with the way she kept staring at his lips the other night, he wonders if she has feelings for him. Apparently, Jiho rarely believes that someone truly likes him because, as an orphan, he lived with his aunt's family, and they were not exactly the nicest to him. So, as they eat later that night, he contemplates telling her the truth about the kiss, but he decides against it and talks about how everyone at his office complimented his outfit. Sangeun, on the other hand, receives the feedback with joy and teases that he may be enjoying the compliments. And as he is about to tell her about the other night, her phone rings, thereby interrupting him, and he finds out it is Haejin calling her about work. He feels uncomfortable about this and excuses himself, which makes Sangeun pissed. To get back at him, she decides to mess up his outfit for the next day, and an oblivious Jiho, with zero fashion sense, wears the outfit to his office, causing his colleagues to make fun of him. That evening, Sangeun drives Haejin home after coming from a yacht trip. But as they are about to reach his apartment, some thugs block their car. Haejin tells Sangeun to stay in the car while he tries to handle them himself, but the thugs ignore him and proceed to get Sangeun out of the car. As Haejin tries to stop them, Gwangnam, who was initially waiting for Sangeun at the building, suddenly appears and begins to deal with the thugs, while Sangeun just blushes inside the car because the thugs are unaware that Gwangnam is actually a martial artist. The next day, Sangeun runs into Haejin in the underground parking lot after coming from Jiho's place and gives him the tie she initially wanted to give Jiho but later found out that he already has. Not knowing that it is a re-gift, Haejin shows it off on his livestream the next day, and Jiho gets to find out from watching it on his secretary's tablet. Feeling jealous, he calls Sangeun and tells her he would like to see her that night, even though they are not supposed to see each other, and she agrees to it, so when they finally meet at his place, Sangeun forces him to share a drink with her, only for him to pass out at the first drink. Seeing his knocked-out position, Sangeun looks at him dreamily and tries to kiss him, but stops herself and tries to take her leave. But he stops her by grabbing her hand and letting her know the reason he didn't mention the kiss is that he did not want her to feel uncomfortable and end up hating him, causing her to smile at the confession. Sangeun happily returns home that night, and when she visits Jiho 2 days later, she acts more comfortable and assures him it is okay if he forgot what he said during her last visit because he was drunk. However, Jiho lets her know that he remembers everything, but he just feels embarrassed about it because he acted vulnerable and smiles at her. This will be the first time she will be seeing him smile, and she comments on it, but he maintains that he has a smiley face, causing her to laugh because it is far from the truth. After dinner, he escorts her out since he also plans to drop trash at the bin, so in the elevator, she sort of expressed her feelings for him, catching him completely by surprise that when he returns to his apartment. He decides to ask his office's anonymous community platform for advice on what to do about it, but they are not exactly helpful with the situation. The next day, Gwangnam visits Haejin's agency after receiving a surprise call to meet with Haejin. Haejin cuts to the chase and asks him to be his bodyguard because he was impressed by the skills he showed against the thugs the other day. Gwangnam refuses at first, but after seeing the salary, it piques his interest and informs him of his sexuality because it has prevented him from getting jobs in the past, and he is shocked to see that he does not have a problem with it, so he gladly accepts the job. Just as Gwangnam is about to leave, the chief executive officer of his agency approaches them, and Haejin immediately informs him of his need for a competent lawyer because he plans to press charges against the helmet guy. Afterwards, he hurries home to prepare for his date with Sangeun since it is a Tuesday, but as he steps out of the shower, he meets Jungwon waiting for him, and he soon finds out that he brought Sangeun, his elder brother, and his mother to his apartment. Moments later, he rejoins them after changing from his bathing robe. and he finds out from his elder brother that his father wants him to stop the stunt he is pulling with his mysterious lady and return home to marry his father's choice for him. His mother excuses herself soon after for another meeting, and he uses the opportunity to ask Seonjin to follow suit. Before Seonjin leaves, he tells him that he looks forward to what he will do because getting married to whom his father wants is the only way he can protect his mother. So when Sangeun arrives at his door later in the evening, she receives a text from him stating that he wants to be left alone, so she leaves. The next morning, she follows Jiho to a golf course to join his colleagues and their wives. Throughout the course of the event, he looks out for her in many ways, so on the way back, she applauds him for doing a good job and lets him know that the wives think highly of him, which is very essential in the corporate world. He thanks her for her kind words and informs her that he improved himself to avoid what happened during the hosting party. Haejin continues to miss her meetings with Sangeun because of what he is going through, which gives her more time to spend with Jiho, so she visits Jiho at his apartment a few days later for a casual hangout. As they talk over dinner, he asks if she is still planning to travel, and she assures him that he will be the first to know if she ever plans to. But he tells her not to leave before running to the restroom awkwardly, causing her to smile. After the hangout, she heads home, where she sees a sick Haejin in the parking lot, and she quickly rushes to his side to see what is wrong with him. Haejin requests that they cancel their contract, and before she can make sense of what he is talking about, he collapses on her shoulders. A few minutes later, she drives him to his hotel, and they sneak into his room in disguise to avoid paparazzi. After helping him to his room, she turns to take her leave, but she hears a loud thud and runs back to see that he has collapsed. The next morning, Jiho tries to send her a text, but a breaking news of her and Haejin visiting a hotel in disguise pops up on his phone, and he sighs deeply. Meanwhile, Haejin wakes up from his sleep and sees her sleeping peacefully, so he watches her sleep till she wakes up. The two of them catch up for a little bit, and as she stands to leave, Haejin stops her by holding her hand and asks if he can fall in love with her, catching her by surprise. Later that night, Sangeun goes out for fresh air because she now feels awkward around Haejin and wonders why Jiho has not checked up on her. She soon finds out the reason when she checks her phone and sees pictures of her and Haejin trending. She proceeds to call him to clear the air, but his call pops up immediately, so she picks it and explains why she was pictured with Haejin. Jiho assures her that he understands and lets her know he is coming to pick her up so they can head back to his place. As this is going on, Haejin goes to the lobby to look for her, and she runs into the lawyer whom he requested earlier. As the lawyer introduces herself, he sees Sangeun, who has just entered the hotel, and immediately introduces her to the lawyer as his fiancée. Just as he is about to tell Sangeun the lawyer's identity, the lawyer points outside to tell them she is married to the guy just walking in, and as they turn to see who the guy is, they are shocked to find out it is Jiho. That is the end of today's video. If you stayed till the end, comment down below, contract couple, for part 2. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more K-drama recaps like this. See you in the next one.